Hello everybody, let me paint you a picture. You just parked at your favorite store and you see an individual get out of their vehicle. They seem to walk perfectly fine and find their way into the store, but they are parked in the disabled parking spot with their placard. This individual gets confronted and gets told they're gaming the system and they're getting berated for parking in that parking spot. But what this individual doesn't know is the person standing in front of them are not standing there just not because of guilt, but because they're in constant pain due to their fibromyalgia and can't move quick enough. So I want to thank everybody for here today for listening and speaking about a critically important topic, invisible disabilities, how they are defined, what they are, and how often people are marginalized because they live with these conditions. When people picture a disability, they often think of a wheelchair or mobility aid. But the fact is, not all disabilities are visible, and that's what we refer to when we say invisible disabilities. According to accessibility.com, invisible disabilities are disabilities that aren't obvious to the naked eye, such as physical and mental health conditions and other health problems such as autism, chronic pain, depression, ADHD, and dyslexia. In the U.S., statistics indicate that roughly 16% of U.S. workers identify with having one or more invisible disabilities. A survey done by WTOP News found that 62% of employees with disabilities report that their disability is invisible, yet just 3.2% self-identify as a disabled with their employer. Invisible disabilities include a wide range of medical conditions such as mental health, physical conditions, neurological conditions, and learning or cognitive disorders, and other health conditions that significantly impact day-to-day life. So why should we pay special attention to invisible disabilities in the U.S.? There are several factors. With around 16% of U.S. workers identifying as having an invisible disability, this is a minor phenomenon. Invisible disabilities may qualify under the ADA. Individuals are protected from discrimination, but the invisibility means access and recognition and are often more complex. Because their disability is not visible, individuals often must decide whether to disclose it in the workplace, school, social settings, and many choose not to. So let's look into how invisible disabilities are viewed by society. Since invisible disabilities can't be seen, people also are often comment, "You look fine, so you must be fine." This can lead to invalidation, shame, and pressure to pass to be fully abled when one individual may not be. For an example, a U.S. survey done by WTOP News found that among workers with invisible disabilities, 34% believe coworkers would scrutinize their behavior, 31% believed coworkers would think they couldn't do the job, and 30% feared that coworkers would talk behind their backs. Research also shows people with invisible chronic conditions struggle with how and when to disclose their condition at work. This is ongoing invisibility continues conflict, and people are being penalized when limitations show up. Even though legally protected, people with invisible disabilities frequently encounter obstacles in accessing accommodations. Because symptoms are internal, colleagues and supervisors often question, what's the need? Many people choose not to disclose their disability due to the fear of discrimination or retaliation, or because they don't see themselves as disabled in the traditional sense. Many systems are designed around visible disabilities such as ramps, elevators, or service animals. That leaves invisible disabled individuals in less accommodated positions. These barriers mean even when the law protects it, the lived experience remains one extra burden and often leads to exclusion. In the U.S. workplaces and educational setting, invisible disabilities can lead to unequal outcomes. The survey done by WTOP News also found that among employees with invisible disabilities who disclose, there were 2 to 3 times as likely to experience incivility from coworkers or supervisors compared to those with visible disabilities. Because invisible disabilities may be less obvious to supervisors or instructors, meaning accommodations or support might not be proactively offered, and individuals may fall through the cracks. This leads to underemployment and lower retention of talent. Overall, the invisibility amplifies marginalization. You are expected to perform like everyone else. You need is invisible, thus the support is invisible, which the system often fails you. Understanding invisible disabilities matters for equity, productivity, and human dignity. There are several factors why it matters and actions that we can do to help with this issue. Educate colleagues, managers, educators about invisible disabilities. For an example, we can use inclusive language to reduce stigma and improve disclosure. Create a setting where individuals feel safe to disclose their disability without the fear of retaliation or judgment. Train supervisors to respond with empathy and understanding. Recognize that what someone needs might not be a ramp, but a flexible schedule, remote work, or mental health services offered. Make sure that documentation and accommodation request processes don't assume visible or permanent limitations, but with people with invisible disabilities knows what works best. In conclusion, invisible disabilities represent a significant and often overlooked dimension of invisible disabilities. Often signs people show symptoms of fatigue, pain, sensory overload, which can impact work performance, school performance, relationships, and general well-being. Because they're invisible, people often live with them and often face a lot of challenges and obstacles. By recognizing invisible disabilities, improving awareness, and designing inclusive systems in workplaces, school, and society at large, we can create more of a supportive environment for everyone, visible or invisible. Thank you.